Let's test the intuition for a moment. Maybe it's not intuition. Let me think about what that is. What do you suppose this is supposed to be a sphere, by the way? What do you suppose the sphere and the cones have to do with anything in this? Do you know? Do you know the mystery of the cone?
Is it to do with the elementals, elemental life?
Okay, but why? You're right, but why? Do you know why? Not just the elemental life. It's actually, well, no, I'm going to let you. Go ahead.
It's the first natural arising form, isn't it?
Yes, but why? Do you know? I'm going to stretch you. Answer me this. When you blow a bubble, does it come out as a cone?
No, not initially.
No, I mean it's floating in the air as a sphere, right?
Yeah.
The sphere is the most natural shape that the planetary worlds adhere to. Right? Anything. I mean, like look around, right? All the planets, they're all spheres or oblique spheroids, if you want to get technical. So why would elemental life show up as cone shaped? Ponder on it for a minute. Let me say hello to new arrivals. Hi, Amy. Welcome.
Hi.
Where are you from?
I actually live in Texas, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Great. Okay. And are you Meetup or Facebook? How did you
Facebook.
Facebook. Okay.
Yes.
Good deal. All right. And my apologies for having to ask this, but a lot of people join and I only get to see a handful of people at the top of the screen. Were you on last night or is this the first?
I was on last night as well.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Another glutton for punishment.
Yeah, another glow. Yeah. Zaire, any ideas on
I'm thinking.
significance of the cone? Hey, Sachin.
Hello, hello.
Welcome
Is
back.
it because of the spiral?
Well, I don't know what you mean by the spiral, but yes, in my book, it does have to do with a spiral.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was.
Good.
Emanating from a single point.
Yeah, the centrifuge.
Single point.
Yeah. Think about it from this standpoint. Think about it from this standpoint. If a sphere, and we'll work into the tarot because to this card in particular, but this actually does very much apply to card number 1 and card number 2 because that cone shows up prominently in both, right? If you think of the sphere from our vantage point as 3.5 dimensional. What I mean by 3.5 dimensional is that, you know, I can walk forward and backward. I can go up and down, right, left, right? These are the 3 dimensions that I'm very familiar with in my physical space. The 4th, I only get to see really 1/3 of it and barely even any at that point. And that 1/3 is the present, right? I have an inkling of what happened in the past. I can predict to some extent what's going to happen in the future, but as a higher entity, or I shouldn't even say that, when one encounters in themselves a higher form of consciousness, it's like you take a step over and you actually lose 1 dimension conceptually, right? In your conscious awareness, you lose 1 dimension below you. So something like, width, height, depth, something like that might go, but you also gain another dimension in the time octave. And this is where I asked you this, Mike, is does a bubble initially form as a cone? And you said, no, not initially, but the truth is it really does. Because, you know, if you start off with one of these children's bubble blowers, and you blow into it, right? You see it as kind of a sphere coming through. But in reality, if you were to step into this and take into consideration the time aspect, what you're looking at is the Big Bang for that bubble, right? It goes from its nothingness to its fullness and then disappears, right? And if you had the ability to walk through time the way that you can walk around the room, such as, forward in time, so future, instead of me walking up to the monitor here, I walk towards the future. I walk sideways to the past. And this came up, Sachin. I really wanted to go into this at some point with you, but you, I believe in the last time or the time before, had brought up the idea of eternity and infinity. Those are dimensions. Those are dimensions just like, if I want to fly to Chicago, I can do that. It's far, but it is within the realms of my 3 dimensions. So do you understand how this cone is actually another representation of what we perceive as a sphere, right? We look around and we see, nature's choice is the sphere. But if you take into consideration that aspect of time, then it's actually a cone, just like everything. If you consider the birth of our sun, the birth of our solar system as something that started off small and then eventually expanded, again, you get this kind of cone shape. And if you can look at all points in the timeline consecutively or concurrently would be the more accurate term, what you see is a series of cones throughout creation. And so when you're talking about the elemental worlds and the unseen manifestations of things within them, like the pointed hat, right, on the juggler card, and like the towers, which I'll show the card here in a minute, but like the towers in card number 2, they're going to naturally take on that form, right, having to do with head development and elemental nature resting, I guess, on the juggler's head. And also in card number 2, really dealing with the antiquities of things, because she's clearly not limited by time. Everything around her is this, it's either a rod, which would be the transmissive rod through time, right? We've all heard of that as the sun, or the cone, which entails all of the history. So you might say that a sphere, if you guys can you guys see my board okay? Okay. You might say that a sphere is almost like looking, if you were to take this cone and turn it sideways and look at it from the bottom in, that would appear to you sort of like a sphere, right? But if you turn a dimension and actually are able to see it from a different dimensional standpoint, it becomes something else. So anyway, what does this have to do with the cards? Well, I think quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up just so that everyone who has joined. Who else? Do we have more people join? Just introduce yourself while I get my...
We have about 9 total.
Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. Share. I'm just going to pop this card up for a bit. And okay, are you all seeing that? The card. Yeah, okay, I see some head nods, right. So I'm not going to start in any particular place, but I want someone to just jump in and say, kind of give me an idea of what stands out most to them. It can be anything on the card.
I see that infinity sign on the stair.
Sachin, you see the stairs?
No, the infinity sign on the stair.
There we go. Right, dealing with time. And what's above that, actually?
It's the sphere with an opportunity or an indication that it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Again,
could that be the line of time in its 3-dimensional form of past, present, and future? At least the way that we can conceive of it in a planetary type of conception. Yeah. It's one possibility. There's actually other things that it means. Okay, someone else jump in. What do you see? What do you notice?
Lots of gold.
Yes, who said that? Jamie, was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And yesterday, pardon me, since you were here for that, right, did the silver exercise. And did anyone play around with that? Did anyone attempt to generate a silver atmosphere in their aura or in the environment? Sachin, I said, yeah.
I did in the morning with my stretching routine. Didn't really feel anything. Maybe
okay.
Look for you to share some more insights.
Yeah. Part of it has to do with an attitude as well, but certainly, yeah, I'll be happy to. But today, as Jamie pointed out, is gold. And what's the nature of gold? If silver is this kind of bright buoyancy, yeah, in an area, silver has the nature of, we said antiseptic. Yeah, if you're talking about it in a healing context. Gold would have its opposite effect. Gold would have its anesthetizing aspect to it. Gold is a very holding type of color. And you see this in things like ancient Egypt, right? Where it's that very heavy kind of feeling. Who's been to an Egyptian, like a legitimate Egyptian museum where you've got just surrounded by all these golden artifacts? Who's been to one of those? Anyone? Someone say yes? Well, if you haven't, go and just kind of be sensitive to how you feel, because when you walk into an environment like that, something changes. It's a very different feeling. And it's amazing to me that, some 4,000 years later, what they were processing, what they were on about, is still attendant there. It's still kind of powered and present in some of those artifacts and those objects. So yes, gold, right?
Yes, I sorry to interrupt. I have been to one of the, I think it was a Baltimore maybe art museum.
Yeah.
They had like a whole section devoted to Egyptian artifacts, and those were like very, very interesting. And yeah, it's quite interesting experience. A lot of stone, a lot of like very different feeling.
Yeah, definitely. How can you articulate that feeling a bit more?
It's I don't know. I always feel kind of down when I'm around like graves and stuff like that. It's not something that I really enjoy. It's not a light feeling. It's a very heavy feeling.
That's true.
Yeah, I couldn't spend a lot of time there. It was like it's very cold. Very cold, very isolating experience. So I didn't really I didn't enjoy it, but it was interesting to just kind of dive into the, to the history and to see what it's like. And
yeah, you're right. So it can have that sort of depressive nature, can't it? That's, I think,
depressive would be the word. That's a good word to describe it. It's a depressive feeling.
And actually, so because of the work that I've done into the natures of things like silver and gold and platinum and so on, when I begin to talk about it, it starts to show up. Yeah. And so I'm already starting to feel this kind of gold atmosphere beginning to generate here in this room. Now, I do want to disperse it just a little bit, because otherwise, I'll just kind of go into an Egyptian state or some sort of stance. But are you feeling it? Kind of that heaviness in the legs? Yeah. Yeah. So it starts to it wells up in here. And we'll spend a lot more time over the next 19 days, I guess, after this, going into the nature of silver and gold. Sachin, I can certainly help you with some additional exercises that give you more kind of a true experience with this. From an anesthetizing standpoint, I mean, you can really do some experiments with this. We covered this before, that the left hand on a man, is more gold-based. The right hand is more silver-based in the frequency and transmission. And you can play around with this. So if you would extend your either hand, it doesn't actually matter. Okay, so I'm going to fizz you up with a bit of this gold energy. When do you start to feel that? Yeah. Do you have a kind of a sensation of it? Watch this real quick. Okay. Don't move. I'm telling you, don't move. But the thing is that she wouldn't have moved anyway, because gold will lock something into place. Can you see her? Yeah. She already started kind of going into a catatonic state here. She left her hand there as I walked away. Obviously it was over. This is another nature of it. Anyway, plenty of time to play around with it. Yeah, it has an influence. So gold is very predominant in this. Good observation, Jamie. Okay, someone else chime in with another.
Could I just add a little bit to that one, please?
Yeah, please.
When you said about the Egyptian, I thought you actually meant in situ, as in Egypt in itself. Now, I've been to a number of Egyptian exhibitions, like the British Museum and a number of museums around the country. And one of the things that I noticed, well, I'll go back even farther. In my childhood, over here, sort of in the 70s, there was a touring exhibition across Britain of Tutankhamun. Yeah. And a lot of the things were facsimiles of, there were facsimiles of the thing. But I remember being, like everybody there, absolutely floored by it. And the first thing that, even as a child, I picked up on was the permanence. There's something that's 4,000 years old. Yeah. And it's
older,
permanent.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, it's practically unchanged.
Yeah.
And yes, I know these were facsimiles, but I've since seen, actual up to date, sort of real relics as opposed to things. And yes, they have a holding pattern that remains. It's like I say, it's still there all this time later. Whereas silver things tend to be more transient. Yeah.
And it says something to the nature of our time right now, because there has been more degeneration of I'll just say the Egypt thing in the last 100 years than there were in the 7,000 years prior to it. Yeah. So what is it? What's kind of disintegrating that and tearing it apart? Not easy to do, though. And I will say this too. It's interesting. My own detection on this is I have been to the pyramids. I've been to the Giza Plateau, and not just the three main pyramids that most people see, right? There's actually 21 of them. I believe it's actually 21 of them kind of scattered throughout the land there that no one ever talks about. But I didn't actually have the same kind of registration of that gold feeling there as I did when I visited the Egyptian antiquities display. It's just an interesting observation, right? I mean, we don't have to have the answers to everything. I think I have some clues as to why that is, but it's almost like it's dissipating from there and it's finding certain places to hold. Yeah. And what in the world would cause it to show up here just because I'm starting to talk about it? Yeah, because it is spiraling in. Last night, Pleiades and I, after the meeting, both had this very sense of buoyancy about us. Yeah, kind of almost like you're floating through the kitchen and floating here and floating there. I anticipate probably if we go on with this, which I don't really intend to, the Egyptian thing, but if we go on with this too much, it's going to be a very different feeling after the meeting. Start to get that kind of stiffness, that heaviness in the legs and whatnot. Right. Okay, who raised a hand? Hello. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well.
I just noticed that there are repeating planetary symbols again. So I see Mercury, Saturn. I see the blue triangle again for cosmic influence. So I think she, with her hands open the way it is, it's almost like representing meditation to me. So it's almost like she has a connection to the divine.
Yes, in this kind of posture. Yeah, and this when I was looking at this today, kind of in preparation for this, it reminded me of an exercise that I want to share with you all a little bit later. But the difference between, you're right, some of the same planetary symbols show up and some of them are new. But the real difference here is that instead of them being at play, right, in her mental aspect of her life, she's wearing them. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean to wear these planetary symbols? We have weird expressions in our culture, like he wears his emotions on his sleeve. I think that's kind of a clue into things. When
I feel like it's like displaying her knowledge.
Yes, not just her knowledge, but displaying her history, displaying the antiquity of what she represents, right? Displaying that she is, this is an adoption of something that attends as opposed to something being kind of sorted and played with. Yeah, good, excellent. Who else wants to jump in with an observation about the card? What about the portcullis above? What's that to do with?
I see, like, I immediately drawn to her eyes, and it's like this seriousness of her look. It's almost like, oh, it feels to me like a warning, like I'm warning you, like I'm watching you kind of look, you know?
Yes.
Like don't mess with me, something like that.
Yeah, there's certainly something to do with her stance in by way of allowance or disallowance, right? To either bar entry to what it is that's behind her, or to allow entry. And you're right, that gaze is a different kind of gaze than the first card, isn't it? It's more of a, maybe it speaks to standards. Like if you're not at this level, you may not pass. And I think that has also to do with the stair steps in there, right? You have to actually approach. It's not just like you can walk up or, you know, skip around whatever this is. This is something that has to be reckoned with, has to be dealt with, has to be approached in the right way. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, there is like a protective, almost like a protective demeanor about her. Like I'm like, I don't know, I'm guarding this place, something like that.
So I'm going to switch cameras to my other Blackboard here. Does anyone, if you have the capability, I'm going to leave it up for about 10, 20 more seconds. If you haven't downloaded it from the website, please just take a screenshot. In Windows, it's Snipping Tool. On Mac, it's Control-Shift-4. And just grab a screenshot of that so that you can kind of place it somewhere.
Pierce, these are all going to be in the slide deck on the website, yes?
Say again?
Are these cards all going to be in the slide decks on the website?
Yeah, they currently are, actually. So I've got a separate area of the website called the 21-Day Tarot Challenge that has an image of all these. So you can actually also log into there and just pop it up if you like, okay? So whatever works for you. I'm going to unshare this screen for a moment. I can figure out where that went. Yeah. One of these days, you know, it's just going to become so automatic. Okay, now y'all see me again, right?
Yeah.
For a moment, anyway. Okay, I'm going to point it at this board here. So I'm very impressed with the frequency that you guys are already on, all of you, gents and ladies, I should say, not just guys, right? Because much of what you are saying is what was already written here on the board. We've got, with this caution and values that was brought up in there. This ties into something that is very fundamental to the Eminent Ways esoteric journey. This what, not who, and this how to approach, right? It's very different. This is not a card of personality whatsoever. In card number 1, the juggler's blue tunic represented his essence, his essential nature, and he had the red pants, didn't he? Right? In this, it's just a blue robe entirely. We talked about the antiquities, and things that go along with this card would be the occult, I think would be the best word for it. Occult meaning occluded, right? Hidden. And things to do with the hidden works of one's life. You don't always know what it is that you're dealing with when you deal with a person, do you? You can almost certainly fairly quickly come to the who of a person. You know, if you meet someone in a public place, you very quickly come to the who of them. It's much more difficult to come to the what of them. And certain people have these knowings, right? These secrets, these hidden works going on inside. From a process perspective, and again, we talked about this, the connections. We didn't talk about the connections. If you look at the image, the connections that she has is symbolized by that belt that's hanging down, right? It's what she can attach to. We've spoken of connections before in the context of what one connects to in the unseen and esoteric realms, the occult and esoteric realms, in the warnings of how to approach. How would you approach something like this? Personally, I would wait until I knew I was ready, because I get the sense with this one that if you approach incorrectly, it may be the last time you do it. Not from a death standpoint, but you either make the grade or you're prohibited. Maybe you have to start way at the beginning or something. It doesn't just seem like, oh, sorry, I did it wrong, let me try again. There's a much more seriousness to it, especially with the look in her eyes.
One of the things I've always pondered on about this card, which I quite like, is her position and her stance with her hands out, facing us, has two meanings, doesn't it? In as people, when we make that gesture, we hold our hands out like that when we want a child to come running to us, but we also hold our hands out like that when we want someone to stand back from us. And I think it's quite telling that she's inviting the what of us to approach, but not necessarily the who's.
Yes, acceptance by way of prevention is, I think, what you're saying. Yeah, what gets prevented. And really, doesn't it depend on what her next movement is? Because all of these are live, right? I mean, this is a snapshot in time. What does she do next with her hands determines whether it goes, full stop, or whether it goes, embrace. I'm trying to show my hands. It's kind of an awkward angle here because the camera is like literally right here. Right. And then having to do with learnings, knowings. We talked about knowings. What's the difference? Who wants to kind of take a stab at, or take a run at the difference between learnings and knowings, both of which are not proper English or grammar, but because of the nature of language and the nature of consonants and vowels, they actually are proper from a different standpoint. S having to do with the addition of something. Wants to take a run, a stab, a flying leap, whatever, at the difference between learnings and knowings?
I would say for learning, it's the action of trying to receive information, and knowing is what you do with it, your action of what you've learned, and how you present it and how you share it.
Yes, brilliant. Yes, it's a before and after, isn't it?
Right.
No, it's a during and after, not a before and after. Right, good.
Right, because learning's present tense.
Correct. Well done. I'm going to switch back to me now. Sorry. I know the chalkboard's much nicer. So a couple of things. I do want to actually keep this one fairly on target, and I think we're going to run just a few minutes over. I think last night was about 2 hours. I'm going to shorten this one a bit. I'm going to try and pack more into it than spreading it out, because that is the nature of gold, isn't it? It's very, what's the term? Condensed. Yeah. So expect the nature of this to be kind of condensed. We talked about how the cone is actually a sphere from another octave, from the standpoint of another octave. So next time you start to see it, not only in the tarot, but see these symbols of spheres and cones in things, kind of try and link back to this element of there being a time perception, a next dimensional perception in there. Shielding. I think shielding really, really, really ties into this, and it's such a basic exercise. And hold on, I need to see. I have a robot camera that can do weird things. So hang on one second. I'm going to try and get it to zoom out if I can. Yeah, see, of course it's not going to cooperate. All right, I will zoom out. You can actually do a blue shielding, right? Blue, like the sky blue, the color of her cloak. You can actually shield your own aura with that sense of blue. First of all, in the aura, blue tends to radiate out of the hip bones and out of this kind of region in here very strongly. If you get sensitive, you can actually feel these kind of darts of energy coming out of the hips, out of the elbows, and so on. But you can collect some of that energy, and then starting in this position here, imagine just a blue gas, the same color, that sky blue gas coming out from both hands and filling your aura, almost like a cloud of smoke, filling your aura all the way to the top. And you can do it a couple of times. Very blue movements also help. What this does, you see, color is not only a cloak of force, but it also sets a standard for something in the astral light. What I mean by that is that anything below blue, if you fill your aura up with blue, anything below that level, that standard, can't get through. Now, we'll give you a couple of warnings on this. First of all, if you try this and practice this, you may notice that people tend not to see you, especially if you're out in like public areas where it's very busy. Everyone's kind of in a red, or some.
Don't do it when you're driving.
Yeah, that was going to be a warning too. People tend not to see you, so you can experiment with invisibility, if you want to call it that. But put a blue shield up and then just go walk around in public and watch how many people bump into you. It's especially effective in places like New York where they already bump into you anyway. But try it. Just try it again. This is experiment. If you were at the last meeting earlier today, I was really, really on about don't read books, don't study in the cultural way. Experiment with stuff. I'm just going to give you like clues, ways into things, okay? But yeah, experiment with it. Fill your aura with that sky blue, and then just go out and see what happens. Now, as Zaire says, don't do it while you're driving. That's asking to be hit, right? Unless you owe too much on your vehicle and you just want to collect the insurance on it. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Don't do it while you're driving. But play with things like this. One thing that it will do also, sometimes when you have this kind of blue thing going on, people don't understand you because it works the other way too. Whatever comes out of you, right, when you're speaking, is also going to go through that filter and kind of keep all the lower elements, the lower aspects to it. So it's a good kind of meter, a barometer really, to find out what it is and who it is. Not who it is. Who cares? What it is that you're dealing with. So give it a shot. You can try other colors too. We noticed no one mentioned the black and white in here. I'll give you a very interesting one that you can try after you do the blue one. Please just practice the blue one for a while. But you can actually make stripes in your aura of black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, like a prisoner, right? Alternating. And that has a very interesting effect of just breaking up everything that comes in. Everything. In fact, probably the most lost person would be you, unless you have connections outside of your aura in that regard, because it literally will just break up everything that comes into you. Any questions real quick on the shielding? Got it?
Is that kind of like glamour?
Ooh. So I presume you're talking about the glamoring as related to like vampires and fairies and whatnot. Is that right?
No.
Right? No? Okay, tell me.
No, just kind of like what you're trying to give it. Like I'm talking about glamour in regards to how you're trying to perceive in a certain way. Like you want someone to take what you're saying a certain way, because what you said about the communication, it's like you said when you're in blue, it can sometimes get lost when you're trying to send it out. So is that in a sense kind of like a glamour?
Yeah, it gets lost if they're not up to your standard. I mean, literally you kind of become this card, right? Approach if you dare. Approach if you're, no, not even if you dare. Approach if you are at the right level. Okay, that's what blue can do. To get someone to listen to you, there are some very interesting things that you can do. The nose, I'm not going to go into this too much, but the nose is one of the outlets for the emotion. And you know how emotion is a very powerful force, isn't it? You can actually charge up with your positive hand. So, for you, it'd be your left hand, but for me, my right one, you can charge up the emotional force in you by just touching your nose a few times like this. And then look at how people respond to you when you look at them, because they will not, if you do it and if you practice with this, they won't be able to look away. Yeah, it's got this kind of very penetrating, holding aspect to it that just grabs a person by, the soul, not literally, but kind of that's the feeling behind it, right? That would be more along the lines of what you're saying, but yeah, you're definitely in the ballpark with the glamour, right?
Okay.
Play around with things. Okay. I think we've got that one, at least for now. Shielding, I could likely spend several months of just going through this type of stuff, right? There's a whole science in the work that we do about doing various shieldings, and even I've always been able to see electrically, even as a small child. What I mean by see electrically is like see people's auras, their color displays, see things not just electrically but also astrally. And I used to place objects in the astral light because I have a terrible sense of direction. I don't know why. I can't find a place again unless I place something there. But one of my tricks that I learned when I was younger was I would place an orange cone at a place that I wanted to remember, like, walking to school and walking back home kind of thing. It's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. You can do things like that. It's all very possible as long as you have the sensitivity to be able to do it and see it, right? Okay. The portcullis, I wanted to bring this into shielding too, just a little bit, and we are over time as usual, but maybe just another 10 minutes if you guys can bear with it. One thing that's very useful, you can also fill your house, fill your space, the room, especially against the walls with blue, because it is important, right? You don't just leave your front door unlocked and invite anything in that might be in the neighborhood. We don't do that in the seen realms. Why would we do that in the unseen realms? And so this can be kind of a prevention in your own home as well. Good practice as you lay down at night and go to sleep is just mentally go. You can do this mentally too. You don't have to do it physically, but mentally walk through each room of your house and just visualize yourself, releasing that kind of blue energy around your house. And then in front of windows and doors, you can place a big red X, like this portcullis in here at the top has a bunch of red X's in it. You can place that, and that will be almost like a brush, right? An airlock of what's coming in. It can also keep, if you live in an area with a bunch of traffic and things like that driving by, it can make that interruption less noticeable for you. Even though the sound comes through, the electrics of it tend not to. All right. We talked about gold atmospheres. We touched on containment. This is the nature and the idea of gold. The astral light I have referred to indirectly. I really think that this card is a representation on a lower level, meaning at a planetary level, of the astral light of the planet. It holds her antiquity. It holds her memories. Do you know that everything that has ever been done, well, okay, there's an exception to this. Almost everything that's ever been done on this planet is still here. If you're sensitive to it, you can actually tap in. If you want to know what Egypt or what, Siam, ancient Siam was like, or different places, if you want to know the antiquity and the history of a place, you as a human, as a amazing radio receiver, can literally tune into the astral light of a place. She holds it. So at a lesser level, I think this card actually represents the planet from that, all of the religions and all of the ways and all of the means that are appearing as symbols on her robe are indicative of that. We'll get into all this stuff. I know I'm just like, now I'm laying breadcrumbs, right? Like, how do you do that, Pierce? That's where I'm at with it. How would you use this? See, I'm not going to go into the divining aspect of this or how to use this necessarily in a reading. What I really want you to think about is how you can pull this into your life for when you need it. All right. Sometimes, even as a gentleman, sometimes I need this essence in what I'm dealing with. I need the essence of this priestess, right? This blockage or passage, this containment. That white and black pillar really is the thesis and antithesis, isn't it? What do they call them in Judaism? It's like, can't think of it. It is in the Kabbalistic tree of life, right? The two pillars. It'll come to me. How are we? Is this interesting? You enjoying it?
Oh yeah.
Good. Excellent. Yeah. Does it make you want to learn more? Does it make you want to kind of explore? Right? We live in such an amazing world. Where else are you going to learn this? You should learn this in grade school, shouldn't you? They should sit you down right after math, right between math and like social studies, and give you a lesson on the astrolite and on shielding and on all of these types of things, shouldn't they? But they don't. So here I am, doing my best. Little tap dance. Right.
I want to add one thing.
Aha, good. Hey, Armin.
You asked about knowing and learning in relation to the priestess card.
Yes.
Well, knowing is always powered by learning in a different way to culture. So learning is powered by knowledge itself, and knowing is powered by unspoken insight. And that's what the priestess has, right?
Yes, yes.
And so if you were to able to look through the priestess's eyes at the world, you'd see a different picture to the one that we have as a general view of the world. And the difference is, therefore, the knowledge between what you have and what she has, what you see and what she sees, and most of all, what you make of it and what she makes of it. You know?
That interrelation, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, just a point.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And what are you still doing up?
Well, I'm old.
You told me you weren't. Yeah.
Every time you start working, I get headaches. So I think I better go and join him. I get drawn.
Yeah.
He's got an old man's bladder. That's what it is.
Who said that? Who said that? You're in trouble with me.
All right.
Hey, Piers, it sounds good. Are you tired? You should be the one that's tired. You've been whacking away all day.
See.
Especially with earlier on today. I mean, you know, you
do
stunned
it
us.
right.
You're good looking and you're also intelligent. I mean, both those qualities in a good man, that's hard to find, isn't it, really?
If only I could dance.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what they say? The dances are called into the rhythm of the land, right? Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So don't go to Wales, otherwise you'll end up Morris dancing. Yeah. It's a joke. So I'm getting out. Why am I up? Oh, I came along just to hear your magnificent orations.
Your support is always welcome. Thank you.
We're always surrounded by beautiful women. What am I supposed to?
I better learn to dance then, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you, everyone. Again, tomorrow. Now, like I said, I'm not promising that I'm going to do these consecutively and in order, but these two are so integrally tied together that I kind of felt like it would be a disservice not to do that. So tomorrow, maybe card number 3 or maybe card number anything. Doesn't matter. But yeah, enjoy the show.
That's it. Keep us guessing.
Keep you guessing. Yes.
It's a mystery night, say a mystery.
Yeah, that's
night.
right. And
Everybody
and
loves a mystery night, don't they? Yeah, I mean,
It should appeal to your divinatory skills, shouldn't it?
yeah. And I'm a practical person too. I'm going to try every single time to introduce something that you can actually take away and do, not just something that you can take away and know, because development has to go like this, doesn't it? Where you have a bit of knowledge and learning, and then your level of being has to catch up. And then your level of being even grows beyond that, which necessitates that you have to come, to its level. It's this seesaw type of thing in there. And the practical exercises are a way to take the knowledge of what you're learning and see if it really does apply. Yeah. Raise your level of being with it. So thank you all very much. Have a good night. Get some sleep. You folks in the UK. And Svetlana, good to see you again.
What a past 2 in the morning. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Good to see all of you again. All right. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
See ya. Be in touch.